Test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm ready. You guys ready with audio and video? What's up, RE Source Nation? I'm so excited because it's 2023. It's our very first show, and we got one of my favorite guests that we don't get to have on very often, but when he comes and joins us, it is one of the best shows of the year, and I can't wait to dig in with Garth Graham. Garth, first of all, man, before we get into it, thanks for carving out time. I know you're like super busy, and you know you're handling all the important stuff, usually talking with CEOs and executives, but you're coming to hang out with us little folk today, so I appreciate that.
Ryan, I always start by saying I was a loan officer. So originally, 20 some years ago when I got into business, oh shoot, that's a lie. 30 some years ago when I got into business, I started as a loan originator, came up through the production ranks. So it still is the buzz that I get is when I talk sales and talk to salespeople. I mean, I'll give you some high level numbers and whatnot, but hey, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, with the first digital mortgage from memory, right? Like, didn't you actually create the first digital
Yeah.
online mortgage?
I
Isn't-
claimed it in
Yes.
1996 and nobody sued me.
Yeah.
So it has to be true.
So
Now
it
we
has to be
we
true.
We did the first, online mortgage in 1996. The word digital didn't even exist, of course, back then.
Serious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shoot, even our car stereos and our home stereos were analog, so
Oh,
I
I
don't even know
remember
what
that.
digital. So, yeah, so we did the first digital mortgage in 1996, but, you know, I'm a retail guy by background and a CD guy lately and a consultant for the last decade, so.
Mostly all the executives know who you are. A lot of the loan officers know who you are. Some of the realtors may not. So guys, like, to kind of put it in perspective for real, Garth is talking to typically owners and executives on a daily basis,
Sure.
advising, they strategize, handles a lot of mergers and acquisitions when a company wants to sell or when they want to join another company. So this is real high level information. You could make a case, and Garth could probably attest. Like they probably have the most well-rounded perspective in the entire industry because they get so many points of light from so many different lenders. So this
Right.
is a high-level guest, and it's a treat. Whatever you're doing, stop doing. Turn off your other screens. If you're driving, focus in because this is good intel.
Well, actually, I'm about to share a screen, so if you're driving, don't look at
That's really good.
it.
If you're driving, pull over and then you can look at it because you don't want to see it. So, guys, I've been thinking about 23 and I've had kind of a thought and a strategy of like how I'm going to attack. And I say attack 23 for the right reason. And I think Garth is going to show you why. 2020 and 2021 came to us and provided the most prosperous time the industry has ever faced. And we've all probably had record years and enjoyed an amazing time. 2023 is going to be different and it's not coming to us, guys. And we're going to have to go attack it and take our piece of the pie. And so I can't wait for Garth to kind of share some interesting stats and graphs to really show you why that is versus me just saying this thing. He's going to really articulate why with a lot of stats and graphs. And guys, facts don't have feelings. These aren't good. These aren't bad. They're just data. So Garth, I'm going to give you the reins. I'll let you drive and I'll riff with you, man.
Yeah, awesome. So, I think what's sort of interesting, and I'm sharing a slide that probably doesn't make the audience necessarily feel great, but this is since 1990. So this is about when I got in the industry, by the way. Since 1990, the the dark green is the purchase volume, and the lighter green is the refinance volume. And if you really isolate that light green, 2020 and 2021. Way off to the right was the last period that we've had where we were consistently 50% refinance or over, meaning half the volume in the industry was really the refinance opportunities, helping customers save money on a monthly basis. That's a good thing, but it's not the core business that we're in, which is purchase. And we're definitely heading into the purchase market. Last year was 75% purchase. Next year is going to be even higher, mostly because of the unprecedented rise in interest rates, almost a 4% jump in interest rates between 2020 and 2022. But the good news off to the right is we are expected to see interest rates begin to drop a bit, which we think will help. Hence, those green bars off to the right will help both the purchase market and the refinance market, especially into 2024 and 2025. But I do have some good news, so I do want to share that as well. Um, so one of the things that I think is we consistently see a dramatic change year over year in the number of units done in our industry. And that's what the two charts on the right are saying. Last year, we had 76% less refinances. And in 2023, we're forecasted to have another 30% less than 2022. This is refinance units. And I'm going to tell you why I think units is so important. The purchase volume is last year was down 24% in units. It wasn't down that much in dollars. So people missed it because the average loan amount was so high.
Is that
Sales
just year
prices
over
went
year,
up.
Garth, just to
This
make
is
sure?
year over year. Yes,
24%, just so the audience
24
knows.
year over year. And next year, units will be down another 10% in purchase, bottom right corner. So really, if you put this though, and the other thing I want to talk about is so much is talked about with the digital mortgage and the online or the consumer direct lenders, of which I was one 20 some years ago. But they did half of refinances were done by the online and the consumer direct lenders, but they only do about 15% of the purchase. So if you're a retail person, as rough as the industry feels, you should be thankful you're not a CD person because it is way worse for the CD lenders where they half their volume is gone or they did 50% of all the refinances and the refinances are down 70 some percent. They do only 15% of the purchase and the purchase is down only slightly, but just by mix of volume, there's not a lot of opportunity for the CD lenders. Their volume is down substantially.
Garth, sorry to interrupt, but I want to kind of
Problem.
chime in from time to time, guys, to help
Yep.
you guys see the opportunity, which Garth just outlined. This year and all of last year, we prepped you for this year, saying it's going to have to be a take a market share mindset, steal market share. He just gave you one, and there's going to be a couple others opportunities that Garth talks about. So there's opportunity there. Okay, CD Consumer Direct maybe stole some of your business in the last couple of years. They're getting out of the business, or it's reducing. Either way,
Yep.
opportunity, take their market share back. So just
Yep.
wanted to, I'm going to interject from time to time just to help
Well,
see the opportunity. It's not all
yeah.
bad news. There's opportunities and everything, right?
Yeah, and I think this is really, I think the one that will be pretty interesting. This is units. So let's not talk about trillions of volume, 4 trillion to 2 trillion drop. Let's get the dollars out of here and talk about units. And here's one of the things. The reason you want to talk about units, and better yet, talk about families, is how many opportunities do we have to help families buy a home or in limited scenarios, save money on a refinance or, cash out or whatever it might be. But this is mostly a story of purchase. In 2021, we had 13.5 million opportunities. That's the chart on the left, of which roughly 5.2 million were purchase and 8.3 million were refi. That's in the past. Last year it was about 6 million, of which 3.9 million of those were purchase units. Next year is going to be 4.9 million units. So we're going to go lose another million in units in 2023. And I said, hey, this is the good news. That's not so good, but it's nowhere near the drop that occurred from 2021 to 2022. It's a much lower drop in the number of units. And if you focus on purchase, it's a drop from 3.9 to 3.5. There are still 3.5 million opportunities in 2023 to help people get a purchase loan. That is the primary focus from an industry perspective on what we should be focused on.
The at bats are fewer, but to your point, like we were going 100 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour seems a lot. Like, wow, we just slowed down really fast. What you're saying is, 2022 to 2023 is like maybe we're going 60, maybe now we're going 50. So the at bats are fewer, but it's not going to feel like such the contraction that we had from 21 to 22.
Well, and if you look at the retail chart to the right, which breaks out the retail versus CD, this 2022 retail did about 4.3 million of the 5.9 units. We forecast they'll do 3.7. It's the CD drop is significant. They did 5 million units in 2021. They're down to 1.2. I mean, they're down 80 some percent. So it's focusing on how many opportunities you have. And if you notice this slide, we didn't say anything about dollars. And I really think one thing I would say is if you are in the business today, ignore the dollars. Focus on the families and the opportunities, and the dollars and commissions will follow. But every single at bat is critical, big loan or small, first time home buyer or move up buyer. And every at bat's a chance to enhance your sphere of influence, to gain market share, like you said, and you're flat on right. You're going to have to be able to steal market share in order to maintain or ultimately grow your business.
And there'll be another opportunity, Garth, to talk about the fewer loan originators in general in the
Yeah.
business. We'll get to that. Can you go back 2 slides though, Garth, to the
Dang.
units tell a different story? So I was looking
Yep.
at that. It almost looks like the refinance volume top right there, maybe a little refi boom in 24. Is that
That's
accurate? Is
right.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you look out at 20, and I think that's a great point. That is the other kind of good news story in here. Most of the headwinds are behind us. Not all, but most. Meaning we are going to begin to, in the course of 2023, the forecast is we are going to begin to gain unit opportunities. And in 2024, actually refinances are expected to go up 23%. And purchases expected to go up 9%, mostly because we are forecasting, or the industry is forecasting, that interest rates will begin to fall back to kind of the 2018 level, which might sound crazy for those of you who've been in the industry 4 years, because 2018 felt pretty painful. But we're going to be back to that kind of level. We're not going to be to the 2020, 2021 level. But we're going to be back to lower interest rates, and part of the reason we think there'll be a 23% increase in interest in refinance opportunities in 2024 is refinancing the people that you did in 2022 and 2023 at the higher rates.
Hey,
Um,
one more point too, kind of a high
mhm.
level point. So bear with me, LOs and realtors. Go back one more, Garth, and we'll look at the volume. So I've been prepping my team. You might as well throw out 2020 and 2021 for any sort of helpful purposes planning forward. You might as well just throw them out. They're complete anomalies,
Mhm.
outliers, and
They are.
you got to go back to 19 to really find a run rate for an organization. So when you're looking at staffing and right sizing, guys, like don't even look at 2020, 21. Your run rate's closer to 18, 19, 16. And I think some of those, the market has trimmed some of that. You've seen some layoffs, and I know this is a tough conversation, but you want your organizations to right size, guys. You don't want them paying LOAs, processors, underwriters to sit around because now your margins are higher. Now you're selling a higher rate. So I know it's a
That's
tough
right.
conversation, but they have to right size, and you really got to look back to, you got to throw out those previous 2 years to really help you gauge what's my staffing need to look like. Any thoughts on that, Garth?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things that was really, really clear. We had about 260,000 people in our industry in May 2019. And I'm looking at to make sure I nail these numbers. I'm looking over here, of which about 80,000 were loan officers. So we had about 80,000 loan officers and about 260,000 people. And that, no, total. Bankers and brokers, and the only thing I'm isolating here on that loan officer count is what we term as active loan officers, meaning they did at least a loan in a quarter. So it's not every single person who might have an NMLS license, but it's everything person at least is active at some level. Yeah. So it was 80,000 and 260 May 2019. The peak number I'm looking off to the right over here, and I'll send you this so you have it, Ryan. We got up to 400,000 people in our industry, and it only went to about 100,000 loan officers, which explains why the loan officers were probably unbelievably busy and unbelievably late hours. And congratulations on your success in those 2 years because, it was tough, but it's hard to add, that licensed activity and the level of experience it takes to do that job. Yeah, active, active. That's exactly right. And really our industry, for the most part, is 100,000 loan officers over time chasing 1,000,000 realtors. And as I pointed 2 slides ago, for 3.5 million transactions. That's actually the funnel. There's 3.5 million, 1,000,000 realtors doing 3.5 million purchase loans, of which there's 100,000 loan officers chasing them. By the way, at the end of last year, we are down to 260,000 people in our industry, exactly where we were May 2019. Now, that's a painful, and having a chart that reflects the fact that it's people's lives being impacted by having to seek employment, probably outside our industry. I acknowledge that's painful, but it's most of that, and I would say that is the good news. Most of the industry displacement of people is behind us. Most of it is behind us. That is the good news. Back down to 260. The loan officer number is 60,000 right now, active.
So interesting. We were talking in the green room. I only got 2 states, and Garth kind of just reaffirmed it for the whole nation. I've been looking at renewals just to find out like how many people are actually renewing next year. And I've seen the same thing. Granted, it's only Washington and Oregon, but only 60% of LOs were renewing their license. And you're just saying the
Yeah.
same thing. There's been about a
That is it,
40%
it's the
attrition.
exact same data. It's the exact same number. It is 60,000. So the good news is if you have survived to this level and you are active and able to originate, granted, it is not as good as 20 and 2021. And, don't buy a second home, don't buy a more expensive car, and all the things that that means to you in your industry. Obviously, we have to acknowledge that. But most of the tailwind is behind us, and we've wrung out most of the industry, not all. The good companies, and you pointed it out, Ryan, which is why you're a good manager and you do so well, for your region and your branch. Most of the good ones have wrung it out even faster because they realize, I need the right people who do a great job for the right families and are able to help consumers.
Well, and that's opportunity too for people that are left, guys. We look at opportunities to steal market share. All right, who did those 40%? Who are their builders? Who are their realtors? That's another opportunity. We got to look to take their market share now.
That's exactly right. So the fact that we're only have 60,000 hand-to-hand combat competitors versus 100 is better. Granted, we don't have as many opportunities, but that's why you got to be able to steal share, just like you said, right?
Yeah, and it's all relative. The fewer opportunities, the fewer loan officers as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jam-packed first 20 minutes, guys. So maybe go back and watch that. But it's all real good stuff. It's something that you need to grab, for a regional, grab your team. This is
Mhm,
great team meeting fodder. Like play it,
mhm.
and then do what Garth and I are about to do, which is okay. Now what do we do about it? That's the
Yeah,
most important thing. Like let's
that's
look
it.
at where we came, where we're headed. Now what are we going to do? The alarming thing to me, Garth, and I'm really interested to hear your perspective because it's much higher. I'm seeing two camps right now for loan officers and realtors and lenders too, organizations. One camp, there's one group of people, and they're kind of resting after their run up, and I get that. I get the human nature side of that. Like, wow, that was a lot of business. I mean, your graph shows that we probably did 4 years worth of business in 2,
That's
and that was
right.
exhausting.
That's a good way
And
to
they're
put it. Yeah.
tired and they're kind of resting. Maybe even took all of December off, and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna rest up, and I'm gonna see when I'll probably hit it again when rates get better. I'll hit it again when the opportunity comes back. I think that's
Mhm.
a huge error. I think it's a real big error because again, as I open the show, I believe you're gonna have to go take 2023. It's not coming to you like 2020 and 2021 did. Now there's a second camp, and there's only
Mhm.
a few of us in it. Garth, you and I talked about this last week or a couple weeks ago on the phone. The second camp is very few, and I believe if you're in the first camp and you're honest with yourself and admit that, you're gonna want to get in the second camp, which is an offensive, balls in your feet, already not looking to steal market share, already stole market share. They're already there, and they've stole market share and they're continuing to do so. They have the momentum and they're stealing more. So the bad news is good and bad news. If you found yourself in group one, you got to be honest. Go, yeah, Hills, you're right. Garth, you're right. I've been resting and I've been hoping for things to get better. Hope's not a
Right.
strategy. You got to move yourself over to camp two, and you got to realize they already got a massive head start on you, and you got some time to catch up. But at least get yourself out of group, that group one that's resting and hoping that things get better, and find
Well,
yourself in group two. Any thoughts on that?
yeah. So here's what I would sort of say. If you were managing through the capacity period and doing really well, and that's really what we've done as an industry, we've gone from a capacity constraint to scarcity. So there were too much volume, and it was hard to manage it, and we had to work really, really hard, and we made hay, which is great. Now we're in scarcity, not enough. You just pointed out. You then need to look at what are the activities that made you successful in the capacity period. Managing your pipeline, moving very quickly, pushing people to do more and more online, trying to get the customer to self-service more so you had more time, managing, having your LOAs chase documents for you because you were way too busy. Right now, what is the activity? It's not probably those. It is literally, and you think of it this way. Sit back in your chair, don't lean forward, because if you lean forward, you're sort of like trying to rush. You're trying to get the consumer to move quickly because I got another opportunity right around I got another phone call I gotta make. You almost have to relax and have meaningful conversations with the consumer about why they are buying a home. Because refinance activity is all about what? What's your current loan? What's the loan I can give you? And how much money can I save you? Purchase is very episodic and there's a lot of human things going on. So I always say this one, imagine you're human. Now that's sort of a joke. And the reason I say that is if you were talking as a human, not a mortgage banker, and someone said, "Hey, I'm interested in buying a home." What's the first question you'd say? Or the first statement you'd make? You'd say, "Wow, that's exciting. So why are you doing that?" Period. That's what a human would do. They wouldn't say, "Well, how much money are you putting down? What sort of loan are you looking for? How much your payment? Can you qualify?" I know that's what they're ultimately those are the tools you'll bring, but you need to stop and take a deep breath and say, "Why?" And by the way, a vast majority of people, it's better neighborhood, closer to work, farther from work, if they're working remote, bigger home, better school, closer to family, farther from family, add to the family, reduce the family. I mean, there's all these human parts that make you then their partner in this human trip, and those take longer conversations. And I mean, that's really and by the way, this is why retail strength, generally call centers don't work as well in purchase. It's not that they don't necessarily have the mechanical things to do a purchase. It's usually that they don't speak the language well. And it, they forget to be, yeah, I mean, they forget to be human, which is, wow, that's super exciting. And especially right now, when the consumer is entering a market where rates are a little higher, their affordability might be tighter. So there's that level of anxiety. And the more you're able to help them with that, whether it's to understand it, maybe they think it's worse than it is. Maybe they don't quite understand after tax payment is really a lot better than just keep paying these high rents. There's all sorts of things, but you got to get them to kind of share that emotionally and connect with them on an emotional level to have that type of conversation.
Yeah, that's why you're so good, man. You're the digital guy, but also don't forget about the human, side of things. And great minds think alike. We had Todd Duncan on a lot last year, and he reaffirmed what you said, which was your first question. And guys, I get it. Garth's right. We all get in work mode. It's
Yeah.
another lead. It's another app, and we've talked about this too. We shot files, families versus files 10 years ago. You can go back and find that show. We were one of the first people to talk about. No, these are families, not files. But there's a reason we shot that show because it can get to be in that rhythm of what's your payment, what's your rate, how much down, blah blah blah. And Garth and both Todd say, hold on, slow up. If you're having a human conversation, the first question wouldn't be what's your down payment. It'd be what would buying a home mean to you?
Yep. Bingo.
Much more meaningful conversation, build true rapport and understanding about what their
Yeah.
goals are. And we're all guilty of it. Especially if you're a top producer, you might do 100 loans a month. I don't know how you would slow down in every conversation and do that effectively, but Garth is 100% right there.
Well, and in some cases, if you said, "I've only got so much time if I'm a high producer with the consumer because I do need to move on," which is valid, and I have a team to help me, which is great. Spend that time on what matters to them, not what matters to you. Is, well, like, "Why are you buying a home? What's the deal?" And, by the way, realtors normally have this as a knack. They understand it, and in a lot of cases, their sphere of influence is personal. So you could sometimes follow the lead of a good realtor. And also, as a loan officer, being on the realtor side of the table is that that information too, because chances are the realtor knows it. Whether it's they had a kid or they own a bigger house, they don't like the school system, whatever it might be.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that because you're right. That first conversation is, well, how many bedrooms do you need? How about your
Right.
school district? What's important to you? Be
Right.
interesting for loan officers to kind of sit in on that conversation to have a deeper understanding of, again, what the family's goals are.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, if a realtor calls you, "Hey, look, I got a lead," or you're calling the realtor, "Hey, you got a lead," the real having the conversation on the realtor's terms, because that's really, what their objectives or what they know about the consumer is almost more important than saying, "So what's the sales price and down payment?" I mean, we slip into the mechanics of it without thinking of the soft skill of why it is we're trying to help this person and how excited. And in some cases, you're kind of honored to be involved in such an important transaction. Well, we're not selling earpods here, right? We're selling something that's really meaningful to someone, and it's kind of an honor to be involved in it for the 60,000 of us that are still in the industry, right?
Exactly. Full circle. Hey, let's
Yeah.
do bonus time OT. We're in overtime. Sneak in 2 or 3 more minutes, just because out of sheer curiosity, and you had it on your slide deck, but you didn't touch on it. So I'm just curious for overtime for the folks that are still with us. One of your slides was reflecting amount of mergers and acquisitions, and I believe in 2018, from memory, there was about 30. Last year, they're finished over 50, if I'm right. Curious, do you think that you will continue to see that number increase in 2023? I can't imagine like all of the acquisitions and mergers are done. So I'm assuming there's
Yeah.
still some to go. Probably won't be 50 next year, but thoughts on that?
Yeah, like, generally, the mergers and acquisitions, are significantly higher when the market is tougher. It's really a consolidation story. There were 50 last year, like you said, that was the highest year since 2018 when there were 33. I think there'll be at least another 50 this year, and there'll be a lot. And so it is continuing to pace. The one thing is I said 50. I didn't say 500. So once again, just there's 1,000 mortgage companies in our industry that do some level, of volume, probably 1 billion or more, 500 million or more, um, or do 2,000 to 5,000 transactions a year, help 2,000 to 5,000 families a year. I should use my own terminology. It's not 500 of them going away. It's 50. But in some cases, the mergers and acquisitions are opportunities for small companies to get the advantages that the big companies already have who've invested a lot in that money. So they make sense when they're when they're put in that context. But it's not every company that's going out of business or that's but it's probably 4 to 5 a year across our country this year are gonna probably, seek an exit with
Yeah.
somebody bigger
Yep.
and that's got, more capabilities than them.
Interesting. Super valuable intel, super valuable perspective, man. Thank you so much. It's so good to, have you on the show again. I'd love to have you on more than once a year because it's always amazing.
No problem. Happy New Year.
All right, man. Have a good one. Thank you so much,
All right.
RE Source Nation. Give Garth some love. Again, this is a show that you want to watch with your entire squad and then talk about it and talk about how you're going to go attack 2023. Realtor is no different for you guys. You got a Monday morning meeting, throw this out there and then talk about how you can best attack 2023. Appreciate you, Garth, and we'll see you guys next week.